What you call that noise?
The XTC Podcast.
XTCFan.com.
What do you call that noise?
What do you call that noise?
I was a big fan of Fairport Convention, and I went to one of their concerts, and in the liner notes it said that they asked him who he'd like to work with, and it said, amongst others, I think Raikou, and it said, much to my amazement, it said XTC. And at that time they didn't have anybody in place for non-search, and I told David about it, and I think Andy actually sent a note down to the theatre saying, would you be interested in making our record? And I think Dave Mattox originally thought it was a wind-up, and he was a bit reluctant to call Andy, but thankfully he did. And that is actually, Non-Touch is my favourite XTC record.
What do you call that noise?
That was the voice of Ian Gregory, who was not only the key link in the chain that led XTC to invite Dave Mattox to be the drummer on Nonsuch, but under the pseudonym of EIEI Owen was the drummer in XTC's psychedelic alter ego, the Dukes of Stratosphear. He is also the brother of Dave Gregory, and in this episode of What Do You Call That Noise, the XTC podcast, you can hear him in conversation with Todd Bernhardt at the 2025 XTC Fan Festival. Welcome back, I'm Mark Fisher, and after the interviews with Dave Gregory, Hugh Padgham and Stu Rowe, I'm delighted to present the last of 4 interviews from the Fan Festival, which took place in Swindon in June. Todd Bernhardt, of course, is the man behind Complicated Game, the song-by-song interviews with Andy Partridge, as well as being a drummer himself. All the more reason to listen to his fascinating chat with Ian. Those of you who were at the Fan Festival will no doubt have had a good look around the record stall run by Burning Shed. And I'm proud to say the online record shop has very kindly agreed to be the first sponsor of What Do You Call That Noise, the XTC podcast, for the forthcoming year. You can sign up to their weekly newsletter at burningshed.com, where you'll also find goodies from loads of artists such as Big Big Train, Circa 5, Mike Keneally, Shriekback and Stephen Wilson. It's the only place to get official XTC merchandise, and they ship worldwide, and proceeds go to the band. Before we move on to the interview with Ian Gregory, let's have a listen to the music you have been making. This is the regular showcase of songs that show the influence of XTC in some way or another. This time, it's the turn of Jack Calvesbert of Spider Noises, and here he is to introduce Are You a Bus?
What do you call that noise?
Hi Mark, thank you very much for having us on the podcast. I feel very honoured. I got heavily into XTC a couple of years back, and as soon as I heard Dear God for the first time, I thought I need to rip that off. So I wrote this song about a time when my dad got stopped for driving in a bus lane. It's called Are You a Bus? It's part of an EP I released not too long ago called Summary Ills, which is a very like XTC, Dukes of Stratosphear inspired song cycle type of thing. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you stream your tunes, under the name Spider Noises. Thanks very much again. I hope you and all the listeners enjoy it.
He made his little noises and ushered me aside. So I wound down the window and he reclined on the side. Excuse me, sir, are you a bus? And I said, nope. I'm sort of in a rush, man. You know how it can be. I'm only in this lane because my pride is failing me. Sorry, mate, I'm not a bus. And he said, no. He asked me for my license and scrutinized it well, despite its authenticity. Couldn't tell. He owned the backup cars, he just couldn't decide. The backup said, that's not a bus. And he said, oh. And he said, oh. And he said, oh. And he said, oh. And let me go.
What do you call that noise?
Thank you, Jack. You can hear more from Spider Noises on their Bandcamp page, which I'll link to in the podcast blurb. And if you've got an XTC-inspired song, do let me know at mark@xtclimelight.com. Many thanks to the fantastic people who have signed up to Patreon to keep the podcast on the road. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, and why wouldn't you? It'd be great if you'd consider joining them. All you have to do is go to patreon.com/Mark Fisher and decide on your level of support. And there's 3 levels. And if you opt to be a knight in shining karma, I'll read out your name at the end of each episode. Before the podcast, there was a book, What You Call That Noise, an XTC Discovery book, which offers a musician's eye view of the band, and you can buy that at xtclimelight.com, and you'll also find details of the podcast there as well. I'm going to hand over now to Todd Bernhardt to introduce Ian Gregory at the 2025 XTC Fan Festival.
What do you call that noise?
For those who don't know, and because he's dressed like a normal person, this is actually EIEI Owen.
I'm dressed like this because it contains all my worldly goods. Wallet, phone, car keys. It's all right for you women, you can carry handbags. But we have to get round it somewhere or other. Thanks for coming, by the way, everybody.
Yeah.
Who's come the furthest?
We have a number of people from Australia. We have some people from Japan.
Wow.
Yep. So
Fantastic.
all from all over the globe. Here we go.
I've got to tell
Japanese
you,
friends.
it's not always this hot here. You come at the right time, or the wrong time maybe. But welcome.
Be happy that you're not under these bright and very warm lights. And I'll give Ian credit for wearing a jacket. So he's a hard man.
It'll probably come off in a minute.
So I guess the place to start is at the beginning. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your musical upbringing. I know when you and I talked 20-something years ago originally, you were talking about how you came from a very musical household.
Yes.
You and Dave and Bob all played instruments.
Yeah.
You said you were forced to take piano and violin lessons. And you found that a chore back then. And so has your attitude changed?
No. Well, I'm very glad we did it. It's very important to learn the theory of music, regardless of what instrument you play. You have to know, it's all maths, isn't it? You have to understand how it's all structured. And like riding a bike, you never forget. So I'm very glad about that we had that opportunity, but it never really, I don't think any of us were into playing Brahms and, that kind of stuff. We were only interested in pop music. And I think after a while, my parents realized this. We actually had a grand piano in our house. It wasn't a particularly big house, but my father somehow managed to convince my mother that a grand piano was a necessary
not an upright
thing.
piano.
Not an upright piano,
Okay.
a grand piano. I think it was like 3/4 size, and it took up 3/4 of the room. But there we are. Yeah.
Okay. Now, when did the change come for? Obviously, I guess you didn't like the classical music, or maybe the crooners that your mother liked.
Yeah.
I know your dad liked classical music.
Yeah.
I know their attitude changed when they heard the Beatles and some modern pop that was of higher quality.
I think so. They knew a good tune when they heard it, and I guess, like everybody, they were charmed by the Beatles. But it is important to remember that, David will correct me on this, but we didn't have a television in our house until I think I was about 11. He was a little bit older. So we didn't see any of that pop music that was being shown. But we did get to see films. And in this very cinema, we would have seen A Hard Day's Night and Cliff Richard's Summer Holiday. Now, that probably doesn't mean much to Americans because Cliff's not particularly big over there, is he? No. So, the seeds were sown for wanting to be in a band. I thought, as David said earlier on, that looks like a lot of fun. And he found it was.
So I've got to flip the script because their attitude changed toward your music. Yeah. How do you feel about their music now? Are you now a fan of classical music or Bing Crosby? Or
Yeah, no, very much so, very much so. In fact, the last gig I went to, my dad would be proud of me, was the Messiah in Malmesbury Abbey a couple of weeks ago. Little on the long side, but some very nice tunes.
Handel needed an editor.
Yeah. Now, they say that he wrote that in 3 weeks, but I can tell you he didn't. He couldn't possibly have done. And I think the first Dukes album took 3 weeks.
From start to finish, right? Yeah.
This is the only time that the Dukes of Stratosphear have been compared to Handel, but there we are. Yeah. So the answer to your question, Todd, is yes, I do. I do have a much broader interest in music than I had when I was little.
Okay. Now, I know you've told me that when your parents would leave, after Dave started playing guitar and you had discovered your love for drums, that you were the mice that would play when the cat was away. Can you talk about those early jam sessions? And is there any audio evidence of those at all?
You'll be relieved to know there is no evidence of it.
I'm disappointed.
He might correct me on that. I think he did tape some of it, but hopefully it's all eroded away. It was basically him and my drum kit, nothing else. Maximum volume. And I can remember all the kind of ornaments. People had ornaments in those days, tumbling off the shelves as the racket we made. We probably had 2 hours to muck about.
And what sort of music were you playing?
Jethro Tull.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Beatles.
All right.
And no, it was too late for David Bowie, but too early for David Bowie, but just the sort of stuff you.
So you weren't playing a 2-hour-long 12-part blues?
No, it's none
Thank
of that.
God.
None of the stuff. No, I don't think so. No.
Good.
I can remember. Cat Squirrel. Do you know Cat Squirrel on the first Jethro Tull album?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's what I do remember that one. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, asking you about the music that you and Dave were playing, when you look back on this, who do you think of as your biggest influences? It's the people who really shaped the way you approached drums and then later informed your work when you were with the Dukes.
The obvious ones are Ringo and Charlie. And what's interesting about those two guys is that the two people that have made the most money out of drumming have got the least technique. That's Charlie Watts and Ringo Starr. But they are both brilliant at what they do. They made those records sound fantastic, but neither of them would have got a job with Frank Zappa. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just they did what had to be done, and I thought, and they furthermore they had small drum kits, and I thought that's all it needs. It's just a backbeat and fitting in,
serving the song, serving the song.
Serving the song. That's all you need. That's all I can. That's the only advice I can give people. Obviously, you learn the instrument, but learn to play with other people, and you'll get booked. You'll get jobs.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what was your history as you were learning to play? I mean, Dave talked a little bit with Thomas about being in Ale House and being, Dean Gabber and the Gabardines, all that. And how about you? What sort of bands were you playing with?
I was on the shall we call the commercial circuit, places where I could earn money, because the clubs, you could go out and you could come home with 100 quid, and that would be the difference between, it made a huge difference to my income. So really, that was as much as I wanted to do. I've been in a few rock bands, but it's more. I guess we'd call it function bands in this country. What do you call them in America?
I think function bands is actually
Well,
pretty good. I
yeah,
mean,
okay.
that covers that they're usually cover bands,
Yeah.
right? And you're playing weddings, you're playing
it.
bar mitzvahs, you're playing events, Christmas parties.
Yeah, weddings are a nightmare because
Yes.
they're basically family reunions, and by the time you get to play, everyone's tired.
Yeah.
And they're outside smoking and talking and meeting the rest of the family. So the best avoid, really.
Well, and the drunker they get, the better you sound.
Yeah.
There's that whole thing, right?
But somebody always wants to get up and sing with
Yes,
the band.
there is that. Yes, that can be funny depending on your point of view, I guess.
Yeah.
So we were talking about the serving the song and different styles of drumming, and you were saying Charlie Watts, Ringo Starr, big influences, almost minimalist players in a way.
Yes.
Now, I know there had to be some more technical players that probably impressed you and drew your attention. Is there anybody that comes to mind that, like, if you could have all the chops in the world, who would you want to play like?
Joe Morello.
Okay, there we go. Tell people who don't know who he is.
Well, he's from Springfield, which is where the Simpsons are from. Oh, I think there are about 20 Springfields in America, aren't there? But he started out as a violin player, a child prodigy, and he, like me, he got bored of that. So he took up drumming, and he was the drummer of the Dave Brubeck Quartet, who probably one of the few jazz bands who had a hit record in an odd time signature. But
Take Five, for those who don't know it. Yeah.
And that bloke could play anything. And when I went to see a fellow called Terry Bozzio at a drum clinic, and his equipment would have filled this stage, and he was just doing all this incredible stuff. But I just thought, I'd prefer to see Joe Morello using 4 drums and 2 cymbals.
Speaking of drummers who played with Frank Zappa, Terry Bozzio is one of them.
Indeed.
I saw him many, many years ago, and I swear to God, I think he broke a cymbal during the show. He would hit so hard. And yes, he had about 17 drums around him. So I know you and I have talked before about the difference between like the drummers who play for the song and studio drummers who might have, all the chops in the world, and you have to be willing to do take after take after take. Yeah. Because let's say we're talking about a band like Steely Dan or Toto or, this kind of the LA guys, the studio guys, versus the people who are trying to play live essentially and get it on the first or second take.
Yeah. That's a great question. There's a fellow called J.R. Robinson who plays on pretty much everything that came out of Los Angeles, 80s, 90s. And he has this thing that if you haven't got it in 3 takes, he's off. He's got that much confidence in his own ability to say, the engineers, make sure the mics are all right, the producers, everything's being recorded. You've got 3 goes at this, then I'm off. I might be paraphrasing this, but I'm pretty sure that's his attitude. And because beyond that, it just starts to dissipate. Jim Keltner, another guy who you mentioned, Steely Dan. I saw an interview with him, and he says the drummer is not responsible for the groove; it's the rhythm guitar player. And I thought, yes, the rhythm guitar player, a lost art and very important. And he's been doing it for 40, 50 years.
So I think that's probably a good chance to talk about the Dukes, because the Dukes, you mentioned before, 3 weeks for that first album, probably not very much more for a second for Sonic Sunspot. Can you talk a little bit about those initial sessions, those 5 songs that were on 25 o'clock, and trying to capture those early days of pop rock, psychedelia, that energy? Yeah. So why don't we start at the beginning? Tell us about how you got the gig.
Well, I'm the original Nepo baby, isn't that what they call them these days? It helped that I lived with David at the time, and I was playing, and I had studio experience. In fact, my first studio experience was at the famous underground recording studios at Maida Vale for the BBC in London, and that certainly sharpens the mind. You learn a heck of a lot about your playing the first time you go into a proper recording studio. But yeah, so I'd been there, done that. I had about 2 weeks' notice for this because it's fairly well documented how Andy had a producing job that fell through, and suddenly he had some spare time and a studio. And they just said, well, it's...
And 5,000 pounds, I think. That's
yes, it wasn't very much. Yeah, I'm not, may not have even been that much, but it was a lovely recording studio up in Hereford, very rural, and the brilliant John Leckie, who did the engineering and the producing, a really nice man. I don't know if he's coming or has been to any of these.
He was here in 2022.
Was he? Yeah,
yes.
Well, he's a super chap. And he's, part of recording is man management, and he's got that down to a T. There's never any stress. I mean, David mentioned the problems between Andy and Gus Dudgeon, Todd, and there was never any of that I witnessed with John. So, yeah, it was basically get your gear set up. There was a bit of pressure to do, I think, all the drum tracks first, which is a pretty tall order.
Yeah.
I did those, then I left them to it and came back and heard all this incredible music. And when I listened to that record yesterday, I was amazed, how on earth did they cram all this into 3 weeks? It's amazing. Yeah, it really did happen.
And not just 3 weeks, but how many tracks?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it an 8-track machine, maybe? 16 max? It wasn't a modern...
It may have been 16.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't understand. I knew absolutely nothing about recording. So all this 5.1, it's just lost on me. I have no idea what it even means. But I think they were bouncing tracks between other tracks, like the Beatles used to do on 4-track.
Yeah.
It was incredible how quickly it got done.
So, for me, I've always felt that 25 O'Clock and Sonic Sunspot, which together are the chips from the Chocolate Fireball CD, right? But I'm an old guy, so I bought them separately as EPs. And for me, there are a lot of differences between those two albums. And I'm wondering if you feel that same way and what you would see as those differences.
Bigger budget and about an extra 2-3 weeks in the studio. But you are quite right. It's more kind of polished, isn't it? In fact, the first track that came on, Vanishing Girl, I think is one of Colin's, that didn't sound very psychedelic at all. It just sounded like a pop song. And I have no idea what sequence we recorded those songs in, but I don't think that one was first. But it was a nice studio. I think Oasis recorded there, down in Cornwall. And a fantastic few weeks of my life. Yeah. Wonderful.
Why don't we, if we can, let's walk through some of the songs. And so I asked Ian to do this and to prepare because, it was a long time ago, and he was telling me about how he sat out in his garden with his Discman, refreshing his memory.
Old school.
Yeah, there we go. So we have the first is Insane.
I'm taking some notes.
Here we go. All right, good. So 25 O'Clock, everybody here knows that song, and the EP, essentially, 3 songs on one side, 2 on the other, only gets crazier from there. So who were you thinking of when you were channeling whatever drummer is behind 25 O'Clock?
Pink Floyd. Now, you'll need to sweep some of these names up as I drop them. I was at Nick Mason's house 2 weeks ago. Nick? Yes.
Okay.
Now, you could be too next year if you want to be, because every year he opens his house up to raise funds for the air ambulance. And he gets all his Ferraris out and his racing cars and parks them in the garden and his helicopter. And you can wander around Nick Mason's house, and he comes out a couple of times so you can sign your records and CDs. A very nice man, apparently.
And how many cars does he have?
How many cars?
Insane amount of cars, right?
There were at least 20 on display, and one of them, parked outside his front door, is apparently worth £35 million. A Ferrari GTO from 1963. And it looks like it just came out of the factory. It's incredible. And he's happy to just park it out there and people crawling all over it. He's that type of guy. But yeah, so back to 25 o'clock. Yeah, that's kind of Nick Mason-ish drumming, I think, on that one.
Okay, all right. And so then the next one would be Bike Ride to the Moon.
Yeah, that's a cross between The Move colliding with David Bowie, Laughing Gnome period. Do you remember the Laughing Gnome?
The Laughing Gnome, yes.
And Love Explodes. Is that Rolling Stones? I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of rolling Charlie Watts type. Shuffle. Yeah. Should I just scroll down through these, Todd?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Feel free
What in
to
the world,
interrupt.
of course.
Yeah. What in the world? There's only one Colin Moulding song on that record, was there? Yeah. And that's the one I like the best. I think it's great. It's a really good record. Played along.
We can show Colin some love for that. I mean, let's.
Yeah, I came here today. I told Todd that I wanted to big up Colin Moulding because, quite rightly, Andy gets all the kudos. So does that fellow over there, signing autographs. But Colin he's a bit of an unsung hero. I'm sure you would agree. And I haven't seen him for ages. Well, I did see him. I was out on my bike and I cycled past this house and I thought, who's that tall, distinguished gentleman with grey hair? Greyer than mine, I might add. And suddenly dawned on me that it was Colin Moulding. He was unloading his car. By this time I was about half a mile away, so I thought, well, I won't go back. But he's quite reclusive, I think. I've never seen him in Swindon. But yeah, anyway, where was I? Mole from the Ministry.
All right, let's. Your Gold Dress would be.
Oh
next.
yeah, that's great piano on that. I think David was playing that, wasn't he? Yeah, really nice piano, probably sped up. And Mole from the Ministry again, which I really like. And does anyone know the Tears for Fears song, "Sowing the Seeds of Love"? Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure they took a good listen to that record, Mole from the Ministry, before they did that.
Yeah.
It was a very big hit, that record, and there are similarities.
Yeah, and with 25 O'Clock, one of the things I love about that album is every one of the songs is a crazy pastiche of a bunch of different styles, right? But Mole from the Ministry, that seems kind of a straight John Lennon song almost. It's very Magical Mystery Tour. Right.
Yes.
From that era, yeah.
It is. And it was really created on the hoof. I think I said in the liner notes that I came into the studio one morning and Andy was sat at the piano, plonking this thing out, and it was basically just developed there and then in the studio. It was quite incredible to witness it.
Wow.
But isn't that the best way to make music, isn't it? Don't you think?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially if you watch the documentary Let It Be, you see the Beatles kind of doing that. Paul McCartney's coming up with what turns into Lady Madonna, or something else that's going to show on Abbey Road, and it's like
that Peter Jackson thing was mesmerizing, wasn't it? I watched the whole lot, not in one go, but it's you just feel like you're there, don't you?
Yeah,
it's incredible.
And then let's get into Sonic Sunspot, and as you said, Vanishing Girl, and that seems like
that's the Hollies.
Yep, pretty straight Hollies lift. Have you seen Jackie?
Syd Barrett.
Okay, makes sense.
Oh, and to come back to Nick Mason, the day I was there, that was the 50th anniversary of Syd Barrett turning up at Abbey Road or Olympic, I can't remember. Do you remember that they had to let him go because of his eccentricities? And they were making, I think, Wish You Were Here. And a mysterious fellow appeared in the studio and was saying, who's that bloke? Who's that bald bloke? And they realised that it was Syd Barrett. And that was literally 50 years to the day that I was at Nick Mason's house. So put it in your diary. Next year, if you're in England, it's £12 to go and visit his car collection.
I'd pay that.
It's a steal. Where were we?
Then Little Lighthouse is next in the running order.
That Andy told me that was his favourite song of the Dukes records.
Yeah.
I don't know whether he's changed his view on that. Who's that? Oh, it's got a wonderful piece of Bill Wyman bass playing at the end of it, isn't it? That.
Yes.
Did you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's an element of Rolling Stones in that.
Yeah, you're doing very splashy hi-hat and just a straight 2/4 beat. And then, of course, the song that we ended karaoke with on Thursday night, You're a Good Man, Albert Brown. Now, I know you have a funny story about this, right? Because you didn't play all the percussion on that.
No, I didn't. I had that last night. I think we played that. Who spooled that in?
I remember you saying that you laid down the kick drum.
Yes.
But then wasn't Andy doing the cymbal choke or something?
I think he was.
Yeah. Okay.
The bass drum was turned on its side and I was just walloping it with
and you were just hitting it with a mallet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's got his small faces, hasn't it, that one?
Okay.
I'd have thought.
Okay.
It's not my favourite, I've got to be honest. Not my favourite. Kaleidoscope.
Yes.
You got to hear some Oasis in that, haven't you? Surely. Don't you think Liam Gallagher sounds just like him? I know we're 20 years ahead of Oasis, but there's
Are you saying they're a derivative band? Please. I mean, come on.
I didn't actually say that.
No, that was me. Fair enough. You're My Drug.
Yeah, that's kind of American West Coast psychedelia.
Yeah. The Birds.
The Birds.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of the Dukes 8 Miles High, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Shiny Cage.
That's a really, again, one of Colin's, the great Colin Moulding. Yeah. I didn't really get that one. I got to be honest with you. I'd listened to it and I thought, not sure where that was coming from.
Yeah.
Have you any idea?
No, but I've always found that interesting because both Shiny Cage and The Affiliated have these weird time shifts, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost like maybe the Kinks, something like that, because he kind of Frankensteins the different sounding songs together.
Yeah. Shiny Cage. Yeah. Brainiac's Daughter. Apparently that's a really popular one.
Indeed. I hear a little McCartney and Brainiac's Daughter.
I'd say so, yeah. Actually, I just put a note, us, Dukes. I can't really reference anybody on that one, but I suppose it could be. The Affiliated, again, I don't really know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Pub rock of some sort.
Yeah. But obviously, Colin is referencing the working men's club culture that is probably alien to a lot of you here, where not so much these days, but most towns would have had a lot of what we call working men's clubs, place where men went after work, where it was predominantly men in there. In fact, a lot of them wouldn't even allow women in. Of course, it's all changed now, but I think that's what he was getting at there. Yeah.
And the last song I have to ask about is one that you didn't actually play drums on.
I did play. I played a little bit, but I'd sort of bailed out by then. And I think Andy took over those sort of rat-a-tatty bits in the middle. And I put a note on there that should have been on the Beach Boys 2020 album. Has anyone heard the Beach Boys 2020 album? They were struggling for material.
Yes.
And there's a lot of Smile stuff on there. And there's a track called Cabinescence. And that was the first time I'd ever heard. Who wrote that? That's brilliant. That was really the first time I'd thought anything more of the Beach Boys. Because I was obviously aware of I Get Around and Barbara Ann, which I can't stand. But anyway, when I heard 2020, I thought, my God, this is amazing. It's a really great record. There we are.
And was there something about the feel on that song that you just weren't feeling? And what was it? Because I know Andy ended up playing it because he wanted that kind of, maybe you were being too good. Because Dennis Wilson wasn't a particularly good drummer.
There you go. It was very late at night and I think I'd had enough. And, so come back to it tomorrow. And there wasn't a tomorrow. Oh. I think I was heading back to Swindon.
Yeah, that's the flip side of trying to do everything quickly.
Yeah, well, they say you've got to cram all the drum tracks in jig time in short order before I had to sort of.
And you had a day job to get back to.
I did.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a vacation.
Yeah. So it all had to be crammed in.
So one of the things that I was talking to Andy about when I told him I was going to be talking with you, he pointed out to me that almost all of the later videos are actually the Dukes of Stratosphear because you're sitting in for Terry or for Pat Mastelotto, or for Dave Maddox, or for whomever was, drumming on those albums in the videos themselves. So can you talk about some of those experiences and what it was like? And
Yeah, the first one I did was...
Well, it would have been you being Terry, right? Because it was from Mummer, I think.
Yeah, I think
Beating
it
of
was.
Hearts?
Well, I know I did one video where Terry was still in the band, but I think he'd gone to Australia for a holiday or something like that, and he wasn't available. And I'm struggling to think what that video was.
I think it might have been Beating of Hearts. You're a shadowy figure in the background.
Yeah, that was the one.
Yeah.
Yes. And then there were quite a lot of TV shows I did. One of them was live to air, and two of them were live to air. I'm thinking, it's really good to be able to just mime, or as you call it, lip sync.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no pressure at all. In fact, on one German TV show, Partridge said to me, "Did you drop a drumstick?" I said, "Yeah." "How did you know?" Because he was facing that. "How do you know that?" He says, "Because I heard it clattering across the stage." And luckily, being the abject professional, I had another one to grab.
So I find it interesting that you think that that's lower pressure, because whenever I've had to mime something, I'm always super conscious that in the music there might be a cymbal hit and I missed it.
Yeah.
And so it's very obvious to whoever's watching the video that I'm not actually playing, or I hit a cymbal and there's no cymbal sound.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But you were able to get around that. You felt okay with it.
I don't know if anyone's seen that rather awful promo for The Man Who Sailed Around His Soul. It was filmed at Portmeirion in North Wales. It was bitterly cold, and it was for a television show called The Tube. And I had to mime to some incredibly complicated drumming by Prairie Prince. And I just remember thinking, I just hope they don't put me in shot here. And by the way, I've just bought a few bits and pieces, including the very scarf I wore on that film, which you can have. We could put it in the raffle or whatever. It's a bit moth-eaten, but I just found it in
Amazing. Okay, so thank you.
So, I won't take responsibility for any moths that fly out of it, but yeah. It was pastiching The Prisoner, which was a 1967 TV series featuring Patrick McGowan. It was rather good. It was rather weird, but it very 1967.
Very weird.
Yeah.
And then after that, I guess the non-such related ones, you would have been pretending to be Dave Maddox.
Yeah, Dave.
I should go back more to, of course, then you were Pat Mastelotto on Mayor of Simpleton for that video. And that's the very black and white one where everybody's sitting on stools, I think, if I'm remembering correctly.
No, I don't think I was on that one, Todd. I think that was just the three of them.
Is there no drummer there? Okay.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it does bring on to one of my favourite XTC tracks, and I would love to know what you all think of it. Colin Moulding, King for a Day. And I heard that on the radio the other day, and I thought, how come that wasn't a hit record? That's a really good song.
Yeah.
And we did a black and white video for that with an extremely well-known producer called Tony Kaye, and he went on to make feature films, and didn't we know it? He was really, very, very thorough.
Yes.
Again, that was in black and white. And I seem to recall there was a lion involved. Some woman brought a lion along, and it had to be caged off. And
just to scare you into getting the...
If you look at the video, there's footage of a lion kind of wandering up and down. And like all videos, you think, how much is this? How much does this video cost? And how many people are actually going to see it? I always felt that about videos. I just thought, if you're Duran, you can understand them spending £500,000 on a video, can't you? But I don't know.
Well, and Andy is always very bitter about the fact that it was them spending essentially the band's money, and then the director telling him his ideas were shit and that he's going to do what he wants to with the band's money.
There we go. That's, I mean, you can understand Andy, of all people, getting miffed about that.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, so we had mentioned Nonsuch, and we should talk about your role in bringing Dave Maddox on board for that album.
Yeah. Well, I knew Dave was a fantastic drummer. I was a big fan of Fairport Convention, and I went to one of their concerts, and in the liner notes it said that they asked him who he'd like to work with, and it said, amongst others, I think Raikou, and it said, much to my amazement, it said XTC. And at that time, they didn't have anybody in place for Nonsuch, and I told David about it, and I think Andy actually sent a note down to the theatre saying, "Would you be interested in making our record?" And you do wonder how things work in the professional session world, because I don't think they've got agents or managers. It's all kind of word of mouth stuff and people knowing other people. I think Dave Maddox originally thought it was a wind up, and he was a bit reluctant to call Andy, but thankfully he did. And that is actually, Nonsuch is my favourite XTC record. I don't know where that figures amongst you good people.
Come on, and Nonsuch fans out there? Okay,
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, it's terrific, and maybe one dodgy track, but we won't go into that. Wouldn't be right, would it?
So we were talking before about studio drummers versus, just playing live and getting that raw energy. Yeah. You told me about visiting the studio one day and seeing what Dave was putting up with, the requests.
Yeah. Well, the track in question was called That Wave, and Dave played it to these ears. And remember, I'm a drummer, so I know what to listen for. It was immaculate, but it wasn't good enough. So he had to do it again. Still not good enough. And I thought, that's why I never wanted to be a professional session drummer.
So how many takes did you personally witness?
Probably about a dozen.
Wow.
But I think there was an element of sort of sliceage. Take that bit, stitch it to that bit, and that bit, and that bit. But you don't need to do that with Dave Maddox. Every one of them would have been spot on.
Exactly.
Spot on, perfect time. But he was pretty phlegmatic about it. He's probably had worse.
Yeah. True enough.
I don't know if anyone's read the McCartney Chronicles, and in those early Wings days, I was kind of staggered by the amount of takes they were doing. There's a track called Hell on Wheels.
Yeah.
I think they did 80 takes before it was 80,
wow.
for which is a fairly basic. We're not talking Bohemian Rhapsody here, are we? We're talking a fairly basic rock and roll song. But that's what Paul McCartney is like. He wants it. Yeah. He wants it right.
And when you have Beatles money, you can afford the studio time.
Yeah. So.
All right, so I want to just talk a little bit about what you're doing now. Tell us about who you're playing with, or if you have any projects going on. What kind of equipment are you using?
Since COVID, a lot of my generation have kind of backed away from music. A lot happened here after COVID. A lot of venues closed down. A lot of people of a certain age got bored and sold up. And if you're not regularly gigging, you can kind of lose the enthusiasm for it. I'm kind of sorry to say that I've fallen into that trap myself. I've done a few gigs. I did one here, actually, about 3 years ago. Less said about that, the better. But
and what was that show? What kind of band were you playing with?
Oh, it was a kind of soul band, and one of the problems is getting 3 people to rehearsal is a problem. Getting 9 is nigh on impossible, and I just get very frustrated by this sort of somebody not turning up because his cat's had to go to the vet. It's very, very frustrating.
But you still have a kit set up at home? Do you still get in and bash around occasionally, or?
Not really. I did have a Roland electronic kit, but I sold it because it had too much dust on it. Oh, and by the way, if anyone's interested, I am selling those Dukes of Stratosphear drums. I've got 7 drum kits, or if my wife's asking,
drum
4.
Kit, drumsticks.
drum kits.
Okay.
Yeah. When I did those Dukes records, I only had one drum kit and 3 cymbals, so I had no problem choosing what to use. Nowadays, it's all getting a bit ridiculous, so I'm kind of selling a few bits and bobs.
Okay,
if anyone's interested.
We were talking about Dave Mattox before, and I know that's one of his things, is that it's like, well, what do you want on this song? And he has 12 snare drums that he just happens to have with him.
Yeah, you can only play one at a time, can't you, Todd? That's the thing. Yeah.
Indeed. So I don't know if there's anything, if you want to just kind of sum up your feeling about your experience with, this band that your brother happened to kind of fall into, be a part of, and that you were connected to.
We're obviously extremely proud of him for what he did. He mentioned giving up a regular income at a most inconvenient time, but you get one shot at it, don't you? You get one shot to be invited to join a signed world famous band, and he took that and he made it his own. The Barry Andrews keyboard sound went, and in came the kind of the guitar sound. So he said about touring with Andy Partridge is an extremely amusing man, and if he can ever be persuaded to come here and do one of these, it will still be going at midnight, because he is a great talker and very, very amusing, witty man, as you know. Yes. And as David said, it's just a shame that he's kind of dropped off the radar. I mean, I think he spends most of his time in Brighton, doesn't he?
In that area, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in Swindon for a very long time, and it was usually something mundane, like in the co-op shopping or out walking or something like that. You couldn't miss him because you instantly recognisable.
And he does. Stu was on stage before, Stu Rowe, and they are going to be doing more Clubman tracks. They're going to be releasing those. So he is still in the music, or in the music scene. But I thought you brought up a really good point in talking about like what Dave did took an enormous amount of courage, because it's by no means a sure thing to decide to become a professional musician. And hats off to Dave for doing that. Yeah,
definitely. It was quite lucky, because when he bought that house, I was his lodger, and so my rent money basically meant that he could survive. And it was a win-win, because he would go off on tour for months and months at a time. So I had the house to myself. It was his house, but it was my house. And he'd come back for a couple of weeks, and then he'd go off and make a record. And that went on for a long, long time. Yeah. And it was a great arrangement. It was really, this puts things into context. He'd leave me a load of blank checks, signed checks. So when the electricity bill came in, or the water bill came in, or whatever, I just had to fill it out and post it off. But of course, it's all changed now. It's all direct debit or whatever it is.
The glamour life of a rock and roller, right? Yeah. Leaving blank checks for his brother.
Well, I read Pattie Boyd's book. Pattie Boyd, who was married to Eric Clapton and George Harrison. Yeah. And when she was in her 40s, and both those marriages fell through, and she was basically on her own, it dawned on her that she'd never, ever had to deal with any of that mundane stuff, anything. Yeah. They had somebody to do it for them. And so she had her own flat, and she'd suddenly get a gas bill in. It's a great leveler, isn't it?
Indeed, indeed.
It's a good read, by the way, that book, Pattie Boyd's book. It's worth a read.
Well, Ian, I want to thank you. I mean, first of all, for the music. Love the Dukes albums. They're always going to have a special place in my heart.
Well, we're all looking forward to Dukes number 3, aren't we, folks?
Yes. It can happen. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, the Eagles got back together, didn't they? Oh, no, Oasis got back together. Yeah. They said
right.
that would never happen.
So we're going to have the battling Gregory brothers like we have.
You never know.
Let's hope not. No. All right, everybody. Ian Gregory.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
What do you call that noise?
Thanks to Todd Bernhardt and Ian Gregory for such a great interview. And thanks, of course, to all the organisers of the 2025 XTC Fan Festival for their fantastic work. And, of course, thanks to Jack Calvesbert for the song. What Do You Call That Noise? The XTC podcast is sponsored by Burning Shed, the online home for all XTC CD, vinyl and official merchandise. And thank you not only to them, but also to the generous podcast supporters on Patreon, who include the following Knights in Shining Karma: Terry Arnett, Kevin Burt, Lorenzo Ciarci, Cale Corbett, Liam Duggan, Jamie Dunn, Alison Eels, Jeff Farris, Mike Graham, Robert Graham, Camille Henry, Stephen Hope, Alan Hughes, Rick James, Peter Kitchen, Marek Kraus, Jesper Kumberg, Robert Lawlaw, Adrian Loon, Liz Lynch, Murray Meikle, Yusef Murrah, Max Nyaho, Amy Parkinson, Tim Parsons, Gail Ramage, Mark Reed, James Reimer, Jaime Rostamora, Michael Sutcliffe, Steve Swift, Mark Thomas, Nigel Waller, John Wedemeyer, Lucy Verbitsky, and Martin Whitley. That's all for now. See you again next time.